Welcome to Crypto Sapiens, a show that hosts lively discussions with innovative Web3 builders to help you learn about decentralized money systems, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi. The podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it is not financial advice. Crypto Sapiens is presented in partnership with Bankless DAO, a movement for pioneers seeking freedom from the limitations of the traditional financial system. Bankless DAO will help the world go bankless by creating user-friendly on-ramps for people to discover decentralized financial technologies through education, media, and culture. Hello, and welcome back to Crypto Sapiens. Today's episode is a bit different than others you may have grown familiar with. It is one of a 4-part miniseries that explores Web3 identity. W3ID is a series co-hosted by Crypto Sapiens and many of the top Web3 builders, and seeks to demystify digital identity and present to you, our dear listeners, with many of the novel applications that are being developed today. I truly hope you enjoy this content and find it useful in your crypto journey. So without further ado, let's get started.
I'm Philip Silva. I go by UBI Promoter in a bunch of different places. Have been involved in BrightID since 2018, before it actually existed as a thing. View this, solving this problem of digital unique humanness as essential to sort of the future of how we're going space. Yeah, have worked closely with Adam for years now. Met Humpty sometimes back, and really appreciate your efforts in bringing the various participants in the space together to work together on this big problem, because collectively we need to solve it.
I'm always really excited to connect the dots, in this space, in particular the space of digital identity, self-sovereignty, and reputation. There's just so many people that are building in this space. I saw a tweet earlier today, actually, someone talking about there's just so many projects working on this, and I think that this is keeping from the adoption of self-sovereign identity. And I don't disagree that there's challenges in projects working independently, but I think, to me, it's identity is a very complex issue or challenge here in the digital space and in the Web3 space. And so being able to have different projects, look at identity from different angles and solve for different elements of it, and then come together to build out the ecosystem, I think that's kind of the way, and I need more and more of that. So just happy to be able to put together this conversation here with so many of you who, I've been working with for some time as well. Adam, did you want to give an introduction to yourself as well?
Sure, thanks. I'm Adam, and I'm most known for the BrightID protocol that I work on. And like Philip said, I view this problem as very important. And like he also said, I got into it originally a few years ago. I know other people have been thinking about it much longer than I have, including Vitalik and other people that we know. I got into it because I saw it as like a major roadblock for universal basic income. And since then, I've learned a whole bunch of others it can be used for. We started out with a grant from Aragon that wanted it to be used for new types of DAOs. And so we've that's become somewhat of a reality, though I wish more DAOs would use BrightID. You can actually integrate it with Snapshot and Aragon. But it's got lots of other uses that I didn't even think about. And that's something that's cool about building something that's like trying to be a lower level protocol is that people will discover use cases for you. And so that's evidence to me that this problem goes beyond just UBI. There's other tons that's really important, but there's tons of other cool stuff you can do with it. So there's plenty of other use cases that people are finding, and lots of interesting stuff going on in this space.
That's cool. That's a nice bit of background. I didn't know that there was a grant from Aragon when BrightID first started. Nice to see the spark, I guess, that facilitated BrightID, and to see the extent of development and growth since then, I imagine, is pretty wonderful to see as well. Congratulations too for all the work y'all are doing, because I think BrightID is certainly a crucial to the adoption of identity, decentralized identity in the future. So let's see, Disruption Joe, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? So I work with Gitcoin right now with the DAO. I transferred over from the company to the DAO last August to run the fraud detection defense work stream. Gitcoin grants has been one of the first use cases we've seen that really create a strong need and use case for having a unique identifier or unique online identity identifier in the space. And fundamentally, what we're doing here, to me, is like enabling digital democracies to give people equal access to the power levers in society. To me, it's a pretty straightforward thing that governance is the reallocation of resources within a group, and you need the consent of the governed. So you need to know that the decisions made by those who are governed and have that representation are in fact real people, real participants. And the civil problem we fight is the idea of in Gitcoin grants, people are submitting votes, amount of weight behind them, which is the amount of dollars they donate towards the campaigns. That's how and we need to make sure that they're not stuffing ballots and putting in fake ballots from people that should have registered voters. So we use BrightID, Proof of Humanity, multiple other systems for getting a pluralist view of what communities out there think that this is a unique person. We try to aggregate that, and we use machine learning on the other side to say, well, there's a certain class of individuals that we know are sybil, and we try to teach humans how to look at those accounts and detect them. And then we use the machine learning to scale the subjective opinions of humans. So we don't really use it to scale the identification of a true class of sybil. We use it to scale subjective human opinions. And we think that's better and more ethical than scaling algorithms that inherently have more bias than we know in them anyway.
Excellent. And quite a comprehensive description, I think, of the work that Gitcoin has been doing. Personally, I've, since learning about Gitcoin, have been falling deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. And certainly, I think that one of the differences between Gitcoin and maybe some of the other developments that are happening in the DAOs is you're really building solutions that are solving some of your own problems, right? Like like you said, there's this need to solve the sybil issues that happen when someone may want to basically create a process that benefits them in terms of either kind of take advantage of the quadratic funding over at Gitcoin or something else. So really great to see, and also good to see the expansion of that vision beyond into some other products, which I think we're going to tap into in a little bit, like the proof of personhood passport as well. A little bit about myself here on the stage. So yeah, hosting Crypto Sapiens, and we're really now extending this outside of the Discord, if you will, the gates of the Discord of the Bankless DAO, into Twitter Spaces to make some of these conversations that we were already having a lot more public, give them a lot more visibility, and create more value to the community that has supported us in the past, but also to those who want to learn more about the different things that are happening in the Web3 space, not just Web3 identity. This series here is a brand new series that we're spinning up. It's a Web3 identity panel. It's going to be weekly basis. We're going to be having guests from around the space of Web3. Some of us will be repeat guests, but we'll have some other guests in the future as well, really to try to demystify the topic of self-sovereign identity and reputation as well. Right. So my background in the Web3 space prior to working on Crypto Sapiens is I am a contributor also to projects like Ontology and Orange. At each of those projects, they're kind of working out some of these issues as well on, decentralized identity. And for the former on ontology, they've developed quite a few and comprehensive suite of products around identity, from an identity wallet to their implementation of the DID standard that is cross-chain. So it's been deployed across various blockchains, including Ethereum, Near Protocol, and a reputation protocol, of which has been expanded to become Orange Protocol, and really looking at how we can empower individuals to be able to have a much more robust experience in Web3 beyond just maybe just these token-weighted methods of interacting with Web3 today, where it's more reputation-based, based on your activity and contributions to a DAO, for example. So this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. And so because of that, my interactions in this space across a wide variety of projects. Also, I would consider myself a contributor at BrightID and at Gitcoin as a token holder, but also, because these are the conversations that are important to me as well, in terms of how we can create robust experiences in the Web3 space using our self-sovereign identities. So we also have Orange on stage. I think, David, is that you behind the icon there?
Yes, sir. It's pretty much always me. So
go for it, man. Give an intro to yourself.
Yeah, well, so I'm, in terms of my kind of role in Orange, I'm in marketing, and I come from traditionally like a SaaS type of background. Yeah, so got involved with Orange, and I think Humpty kind of encapsulated a lot of what we're trying to do, and the way I kind of look at it is identity being kind of the base layer of reputation. So without kind of solving these problems that people like Joe are working on, it's more difficult to build communities that are reputation based, and that, as Humpty said, provide like a richer experience. So yeah, I mean, and I'm primarily a writer as well. So I do all the Orange Medium posts, the Mirror posts, the social media. So if you want to know who Orange is in terms of a lot of the Twitter and stuff, that's me. And so, and I think I mentioned this in our kind of Discord, the space is just really evolving constantly. And there's, I see so many different identity focused projects come across, my feed or whatever every day. So it's definitely something that people are tackling. And that, as far as Orange goes, we want to, again, help communities build those alternative ways of existing other than, token weighted voting and whatnot. So that's kind of my little spiel. But anyone feel free to DM me if they want to learn more about Orange or, just engage further. My channels are always open. So.
Great. Thanks so much, David. So you brought something up that I think could be a nice kickstart to our discussion here. And that is, I think we've seen a proliferation of new projects that have come into the space of Web3 that are trying to build tooling around our self-sovereign identities or in the reputation space. Why do we think that is? Why are so many projects coming in? I mean, I think that there's a few that have been mainstays here, and I think, BrightID, Gitcoin are examples of that. But why has there been this influx of interest and development in this space recently?
I think a big reason is the DAOs. Like, as we get to seeing more DAOs proliferate, we're asking the question of like, what is somebody's reputation? And that reputation, lots of times, especially when you're coming in with an older mindset, you're thinking this reputation is something that is linked to a primary key of an individual. Like, an individual is the record in the database, and there's all these things that are attached to them. And people that are trying to say, wait a second, that's not exactly the right way that this happens. Like, if they have autonomy, they should be able to opt out of certain reputations. Anything that they keep with them should be through mutual consent. the information find out, should be attestable or credentialed. I should be able to show the bouncer that I'm 21, but not show him my address or my favorite color or whatever else he's going to figure out. And we're also seeing that this space with a bunch of anonymous voters is driving some need for understanding reputation at a level where there might be legitimate use cases for multiple identities for one unique human. And so the variety of these use cases that pop up through the DAO's quest for understanding reputation to allocate resources within their community, I think that's why we're seeing it.
It's interesting, actually. Adam, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, so I think that it's like when Web 2 was first coming into being, there were a bunch of identity solutions that cropped up. And I think in a lot of ways, Web 3 is a reaction to Web 2 and its failures. And we kind of it's almost like we're going back to the beginning of the internet, like Web 1. We're like, can we get what we wanted, please? Like what we thought we were getting when we were building the internet in the first place. Can we go back to that? And can we have something that's free and that's owned by the people? I think there were a lot of interesting identity solutions that came out of Web 2, like OAuth, OpenID, that then kind of got co-opted by really big companies that took over the social media space. And I can't, for instance, take my graph of people that I'm connected to, so my social graph, I can't take that and take it around to wherever I want. Like I can't just go to a different front end and say, this is mine. And I can't use it in a way that only the people that I already know can look at it. And so I feel like there were a lot of failures and we kind of gave in or lost out to big companies that wanted to control our data. And now maybe we're reacting to that and we're fighting back and we're saying with Web3, this time we're going to take it where we want. And if you want our data, it's on our terms and you're going to pay us for it. So I hope that we have learned some things and we try some new experiments that will turn out better for us. And I think we have we've always had the right cryptographic tools, but I think we're becoming more privacy aware and more design is going into privacy first, which I think is encouraging.
Yeah, I think, Joe, you talked about something in terms of credentialing and privacy. And Adam, you're kind of touching on that right now too, in terms of the maybe pseudonymous nature of the space, but also the learnings from the past that can be applied into the present with the technology that we're building in the Web3 space. And so and to maybe even further the point and to emphasize the point, maybe better said, that Joe said is an example that I know Philip is one of the ones that you used on me early on when I was asking what is decentralized identity, what is self-sovereign identity, and really the example is you go to a market, you want to buy some alcohol, and the person asks for your identity, and you give up your ID, and suddenly they have more information about you than they need. It's not a very private transaction. Instead, wouldn't it be better if we could just give them a binary answer, like yes or that I am of age to purchase that alcohol, that beer, and in doing so, retaining that privacy. When we look at the Web3 space, I think that there's an interest by many to retain privacy in their personal identities, right? And kind of maybe even create a between them, or even have multiple identities, for whatever, interactions they want to have, whether they want to have an identity for governance or they want to have an identity for DeFi, and they want one just for all their degen stuff, right? They may want to keep these identities separate, but they still want to make sure that they can unlock, rewarding experiences across the Web3 space. And so we are looking at the use of cryptographic technology to verify these individuals, but still retaining that privacy. So maybe we can talk about some of that and how, not necessarily how it works, but really just maybe give a brief overview. And what I mean by that is like verifiable credentials, right? So I think this is another topic that we've seen pop up more recently. And certainly, I think Evan over at Disco has been an ambassador for talking about the value of using verifiable credentials. What is a verifiable credential, and really how does that unlock or allow for someone to kind of verify certain things about themselves while still retaining that privacy?
One of the nice things about a verifiable credential, right, is that you may have a whole bunch of them in your digital locker, but you only provide the specific one or few that prove the thing that you want to prove to whoever's receiving it. So, in your example of going and buying a drink of alcohol, all you need is a verifiable credential from the RMV or whoever it's going to be from that dictates that binary answer that yes, this person is of age. Your university degree, right? You need to prove your degree, but not like the grade you got in any specific class. I don't think verifiable credentials in and of themselves solve the uniqueness problem, because there's no entity on earth that can give a credential that says this account is unique. So that's how those two things collide. I do think that eventually when someone figures out the uniqueness thing, that they can then issue that as a verifiable credential.
Yeah, just invited Johnny up here to the stage too. He's another one of these folks that is synonymous in the space of digital identity and even the verifiable credential topic. Johnny, did you want to give a brief intro to yourself, what you do at Disco, and maybe tackle the question that we just shared on verifiable credentials and maybe how Disco sees that?
Yeah, sure. Just before I start though, can you repeat the question? I don't know if I caught it right when I joined.
Oh, sure. We were just talking about the privacy, the privacy nature of DICs and how this opens up the the ability to verify one's, either interactions in the Web3 space or certain elements of our own identity while still retaining that privacy, right? And we were framing it from the context of maybe individuals who want to maintain some pseudonymity in the space. And not necessarily open up, fully dox themselves like I have.
Sure. I'm Johnny, co-founder of a project called Disco. We're relatively new, but many of us have worked on the team have worked at Newport and Certo before this, and still trying to tackle problems in the identity space, I suppose. And yeah, our approach is to, use DIDs and verifiable credentials to facilitate data portability in a privacy preserving way, as Humpty alluded to. One of the things we've seen in the space recently is, I'm not sure how much of the discussion has already gone on here, but, the NFT strategies where you're putting things on chain. Of course, there's many counters and back and forths between the NFT and DID and VC kind of strategies here, where it's like, oh, we could ZK the NFTs and we can make them semi-transferable, et cetera, et cetera. We're taking the approach at Disco that VCs are kind of more purpose-built for this. They sit off-chain, they have lower costs, highly scalable, and you can interact, at least for now, at the front end of these applications by logging in with an Ethereum address, and you can put your verifiable credentials someplace. Disco is going for that. There's some other strategies around how to do this, but at Disco, we have a web app. You can store your credentials there. They're not tamperable by us, but you sign in with your Ethereum address to app or DApp 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They receive your Ethereum address, call our API. Don't have to call our API, could always go around us, but we're betting on UX. And read the credentials that you have and who issued them to you and verify them right there, and then execute whatever app logic. So that's the general MVP vision of Disco. And, talk to a lot of people in this space that are on this call. I think a lot of us share the same type of vision here, and we're excited about kind of proof of personhood and proof of uniqueness, which I heard y'all talking about, but from a more probabilistics. I don't know that we'll ever be able to prove uniqueness without having one unified data set or registry that everybody kind of uses. As soon as you have multiple proofs that you accept for uniqueness that have different registries of those unique proofs, you don't have uniqueness anymore. So I think we're looking at the future where you have credentials from doing work in DAOs, credentials DevCon, and credentials from your school or university, and all of these types of things taken together. The more you have creates a higher assurance of uniqueness and personhood. And for most use cases, you don't need 100% certainty of uniqueness. That's kind of what we're doing. And I'm also at IIW right now, the Internet Identity Workshop, with many of our friends who aren't on this call. Just had a chat with the sign-in with Ethereum, Wayne, and Oliver. So lots of identities.
Wow, nice. Maybe we should have a side chat on that to kind of recap, the takeaways from IIW. I did see a few folks that we have in our own channels talking about them being at that event. So pretty excited to see that the conversations and the development around, digital identity, decentralized identity is continuing and being pushed forward by such, commendable projects. One thing that Johnny mentioned, which I think can lead us into the next part of our discussion here, is the application of our self-sovereign identities. The use these verifiable credentials as ways to provide some proof that we indeed were in attendance of, for example, going to DAO events or being a member of a DAO. All of these things kind of can comprise our self-sovereign identities, and then can provide some sort of proof of who we are as a unique individual. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how BrightID sees the application or the use of self-sovereign identities based on the work that you're doing, within your own project, maybe some of the partnerships that you've been developing as well.
Yeah, so I've gotten to know a lot of what else is going on besides proof of uniqueness. And it's been interesting to follow some of the W3C working groups and see what they've been doing and how the DID spec and the verifiable credentials specs have come along. So I've been following along with all of that. And I definitely can see from the standpoint of I want to combine my BrightID with other credentials that I have. That makes a ton of sense, and it makes a ton of sense that applications will say when a node wants to say that someone's a unique person within the BrightID network, according to a certain verification algorithm that's been run, that can be issued as a VC by a node, and that should be that's one form of credential that a node can generate. So yeah, that makes total sense. As far as combining other bringing stuff back into BrightID, that's an interesting thing that we're still exploring, and that is actually it becomes more useful within so not within the BrightID app that most users are using, but there's another app that we're developing called Aura, which is a toolbox, the best toolbox for sybil hunters. Basically, it brings people who are going much deeper into the problem and analyzing, verifying people and analyzing the network on a much deeper level and using kind of expert tools to do so. That is something where that definitely comes into play. If I already know someone and I'm connecting to them on BrightID, I don't need them to give me a certificate saying that this is my Twitter account. Like I already know that. I don't need to see that. But if I'm a sybil hunter and I'm trying to gather as much information as possible, and I want to make sure that this person isn't using 5 different accounts with 5 different Twitter profiles or something, then that does become a useful tool. So consuming VCs does become useful for that. So, anyways, that's kind of where I see the intersection. I'm sure there's lots of other stuff. There's really interesting questions about reputation and where does what does it mean to have all these different credentials, and where's the line between reputation and unique identity and things like that. So I don't know where we want to take this, but there's I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think it does. There's another term that we were talking about earlier as well, and that was digital democracies. And I think that Joe, you brought that up to through your introduction. What is kind of some of the work that Gitcoin is doing in terms of both its use of development of these sybil resistant technologies, but also the implementation of them across the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah, I think we're fundamentally looking at every grants round as being a small public community that has its own little governance, and they're trying to allocate their public good resources within that community. So originally we were just doing Ethereum round, but now we're doing side rounds for groups like Matic and Uniswap and others. And is that really loud over there? Sorry, they're running something.
That's a little loud, but we can hear you.
Okay, so they are. What we're seeing is now there's multiple ecosystem or governance surface areas, and I think what we're realizing here as we're moving to a Grants 2.0 protocol is that we need to mitigate sybil in multiple ways. What we're trying to do is say that there is a cost for participating, and that you can't game out of the system more than the weight of time that it takes to put into it. So you could view this as something where we're looking at people reactively and trying to detect it. Or you could look at it proactively and think, well, maybe many different communities can try different funding mechanisms. For example, Nalid, who's in the audience here, runs our Catalyst squad where we do simulations and look at different funding mechanisms. Just putting a simple dollar tax that goes into the funding round was one really interesting mechanism design that would make the sybil attackers play into the positive game theory by contributing to the fund. So we're looking at it from both sides, like protection and through mechanism design. But I think a real interesting thing here to tie back into that verifiable credentials is, you're either getting a credential that you're kind of saying, hey, this is one entity that says this person is X, or you're saying here's multiple entities that say this person is X, or you're saying here's many entities that said this person is X at X point in time, and then said that they were still X at another at Y point in time. So for example, let's say you're integrated through proof of personhood passport to BrightID, proof of humanity, Twitter, a few other things. Every round, if we issue a verifiable credentials protocol, you're getting this user was not sybil compared to these other users in grants round 12, in grants round 13. Now, imagining that happening to you across 20 different communities that you participate in. What's going to happen over time is the richness of the credential graph alongside of the human connection, the graph of grants, donations, where the money moves in the ecosystems, is going to give a much different profile between sybil users and non-sybil users, we hope. And it'll kind of come back to this effect where, like in some video games, like Counter-Strike, I believe, had for Call of Duty, one of them had a thing where, extra detector. People were very good at games, but go in and see and judge whether people were hacking or not. And if there were people that were playing with unfair rules, they didn't get kicked out of using the game. They just only got to play with other people who were using the same set of rules as them. So we would love it if the Sybils could continue using Gitcoin grants, just only to fund things that other Sybils are doing. And people that wanted to be in a system with unique humans could be in a system with unique humans. I think that's real democracy, because we're not trying to be opinionated about whether you should be allowed to participate in a community or what the rules of that community are. We just want to make it explicit as to what the rules of participation are, and that the participants in each community or democracy are following those rules.
That's interesting, actually. So if I heard that right, the way that Gitcoin sees it and the way that this is being developed is that you're looking at ways to, I guess, build out someone's, identity and through credentialing that doesn't necessarily restrict their use of the platform, but really segments the use of that platform to groups of people who are using it in ways that are similar. So you are, like you said, using it in a way that is to, usable sybil methods, then you can certainly continue using the platform, but then you kind of are put together in this group of individuals or projects that are implementing the same type of processes. But then others can then be segmented into other groups or cohorts who are doing it differently, where they don't necessarily want to have these civil practices. I think that's really interesting because, again, that's very democratic, and that's it doesn't necessarily block people from using the platform. It really just kind of creates maybe a more fair playing field. I think that's the right word that I would use, at least in terms of the way that people can interact with these, public platforms like Gitcoin.
Yeah, fairness is a good way to say it, because what you're doing is reducing information asymmetries by making sure that the system is built in a way that participants can't do wrong, like rather than shouldn't do wrong, and to be able to change that from the fundamental way the system, the protocol works, would be next to impossible. You might have some level of probabilistic guarantees that, based on it being more expensive to attack than to defend, that the optimal strategy for most users would be to participate in a game that matches their preferred governance rules.
Yeah. So you talked about the proof of personhood passport. I don't personally think that we've gotten an introduction to what that is. Can you briefly describe how that works, how someone can get started with creating their passport, and where can they use it today?
So a decentralized proof of personhood passport is something we found out because if you go to proof of personhood passport, I believe it's proofofpersonhood.com or proofofpersonhoodpassport.com. Kevin had built out the founder of Gitcoin, a SDK for a very quick, crude version of this, just to kind of show what it would look like, and asked a bunch of people if they wanted to use something like that. And they all said, yeah, we'd love to kind of have a few lines of code, kind of like Stripe integrating into your website, a few lines of code to be able to use that is based on the aggregations that are done through the Gitcoin platform. So that was the original idea. Now we're building out to be more decentralized. So that's not fully built. The exact specs aren't there, but you can, reach out to the team and talk to them in the Gitcoin Discord about how they're building it. The overall idea is simply that people are already on Gitcoin right now, signing up and connecting their BrightID, connect their proof of humanity, connect all these other things to get a trust bonus score. So the proof of personhood passport is supposed to be unopinionated, holding a bunch of integrations or verified credentials on who that person is and how they participated in different things. So it ends up being more of a standard or a protocol, I think. But I think that it's still TBD exactly what it is.
Well, that's cool. And it sounds like if anybody is curious to learn more about what that is, certainly I think Gitcoin DAO has a very active Discord. So I would recommend jumping in there and checking that out. So since we seem to be coming towards the end of the hour here, Adam, Philip, I'd love to give us an idea of one, share with the community here, how they can get started with BrightID and kind of some of the things that you all are building out and are excited for, in the near future.
Yeah, thanks. Go to meet.brightid.org. If you haven't already, come to a connection party. They're fun. You'll meet some new people. You'll meet a host. You'll make your first BrightID connections. You'll learn how it works. Then go and make some connections with people that we have a feature coming out soon that will anonymously allow you to find people that that are already using BrightID. This is a feature you've seen in other platforms. We're being very careful about it, that it's not actually leaving any data anywhere for, on a server for people to find. But it does allow you to find people who you already know that are already in your contact list that are already using BrightID. So that then connect to those people or bring some new people into BrightID until you have at least 3 people that you trust and know really well. Then set up your social recovery. That's really important. We've talked about decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. One of the really nice features of having a decentralized identity you can set up recovery methods for it. And I think one of the best, if not the best, recovery method is social recovery, where you allow some of your closest friends to be able to recover your identity for you. If you lose everything, you can get it back just by reconnecting to those people that you've set up with BrightID. It's really important. Demand it wherever you go. I hope these other things that we've been talking about, like dPoP passports and Disco, I hope that they end up using social recovery. I think it's such an important feature. So yeah, that's my little plug for BrightID. And also, we'll keep you posted about the Aura tool. If you fancy yourself as an expert sybil hunter, that more than just connecting with your friends, you're gonna scrutinize your friends and make sure that they're not making multiple accounts, then Aura is the game for you. So we'll keep you updated on that. Anything to add, Philip?
I'll just show a few other things. One is that, right, so Gitcoin has long been a user of BrightID, and all of your grant recipients get more grant matching if you're BrightID verified. So you should do that. There's also about to be a round through CLR Fund. They've been a great partner for BrightID as well. They're doing by far their biggest round ever with ETH Foundation and Ethereum stakers. So they've got a $350,000 grant round coming up, which is, 5-10 times on before. And if you want to help projects to get grant funds, again, you need to be BrightID verified for that. And also, I'll tease out a new thing we're working on, which is a gas faucet for lower price chains. Gnosis chain is one I'm particularly involved in. Sometimes you really wish you just had some non-traceable gas in an address. And we think that there have been lots of attempts at faucets before, but the sybils come and ruin it for all of the honest users. And we want to build out a gas faucet that's protected by BrightID so that all the good legitimate users can use it actively. The networks can benefit from having those people have as many addresses as they need without the sybils ruining everyone's.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. That's actually really interesting. I like the idea of faucet, and I think faucets, airdrops, they're all always fun topics. I think yesterday Optimism kind of proved that, airdrops are still fun. that there's a lot of room for experimentation as well in terms of how we can create better ways to engage our communities and reward them or just give them free tokens, but really in a way that is not going to be ruined by the sybils, like you mentioned. So thank you for that. Joe, I don't know if you're back, but did you want to plug anything else in terms of like kind of future stuff or just generally how people can get involved with Gitcoin?
Okay. Yeah, for Gitcoin, just check out gitcoindao.com. Whatever you're working on, there's probably some little way to get involved. I mean, we have from basically full-time, machine learning engineers to, storytellers, copywriters, and infographics help to, there's meme makers and other work streams, not so much in our defense one. But what I'm trying to say is there's like something for you to do and participate. There's things that are very small bounties. There's things that are opportunities to be hired full time. So check it out and see how you can get involved. It's gitcoindao.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So for anybody who's in the audience and would like to just kind of keep going with learning about Web3 identity and learning about the different projects in this space that are building it, and even potentially the way that they're working together. We heard here BrightID and Gitcoin, by owning your identity with BrightID and using that as a trust bonus on Gitcoin, you are able to increase that match on your contributions, your public goods funding on the Gitcoin platform. Like that, there are just so many examples of ways that these different projects are collaborating with one another and building out this ecosystem so that we can own our digital identities in the Web3 space and open up and unleash the power of that identity and reputation in this space. So, do tune in. And then if you have any questions or anything that you would like to hear, go to the pinned message on the Crypto Sapiens channel and let us know what you want to hear, or what projects you want to talk about, or what questions you have about, self-sovereign identity or reputation, or even of the projects that we are going to be featuring.